Okay, welcome back. We're on to Wiggers' diagram. Poor Mr. Wiggers, I think lots of anatomy physiology students have yelled at him in their studies because it is a little confusing, but it really is a fabulous diagram that will help you understand. So I'm going to show you still a piece of it. The big one is this one, the one that's published in Canvas, right? But I'm going to backtrack and I'm going to give it to you in pieces because I think it's easier to understand. Okay. What Mr. Wiggers wanted to do was put all these concepts about how the heart functions into one chart. And that's what he did. The problem is that the more you put on there, the more helpful it is, but the more confusing it is. So it got a little confusing. So what I've done is taken away parts of it and shown you just a piece. So in this piece here, look at this chart. We have volume on this axis. And this is over time, okay, on the other axis. So volume is what matters right now. So let's imagine that this a water balloon, which is the heart, okay? It's a water balloon is going to fill and empty with volume of blood inside it, okay? And if you imagine it full here, it's full, okay? It's just filled up and now it's going to eject. So it's going to, it stays full for a little bit and then over time it's going to eject, its volume's going to drop, right? Volume drops, volume drops, volume drops, and then for a bit nothing kind of happens and then it starts to fill. Fill, 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 and it keeps on going and then the same thing's going to happen again. So those are in steps 1 through 5. That's all very well when it's one curve, but when you start adding other things, for example, in light yellow here, that was systole. That was the time where the heart, the ventricle is contracting, it's ejecting. So now let's see if it made sense. Systole begins and the volume doesn't change. Well, yeah, a little bit because it starts to squeeze this water balloon and nothing quite exits right away. The squeeze has to get a little stronger before that volume can actually eject. Okay, so systole begins. You've had QRS and now contraction starting. It starts, the valves start to close, atrioventricular valve closes, and then the pressure increases. And as the pressure increases, and finally, it's going to start to eject this blood out. And so that ejection is going to make so that in 2, the volume drops, 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 drops. And at the same time, then valves are going to close again so that it doesn't refill accidentally, right? So it doesn't, so blood that's, for example, exited on the left side out of, let's do the right side. So if you have, to visualize it better, so if you have on the right side, it's going to eject out to the lung, and it's through the pulmonary trunk. So as it goes out towards the lung, and then systole is over and it relaxes, you don't want that blood to go all the way back down again accidentally. Okay, so a second set of valves is going to close, and those are the semilunar valves, and then blood's going to go on its way, and then it's going to refill again. So these sounds here, burst of sound and burst of sound, first and second sounds, it's the lub dub, lub dub. So this is lub, and the lub is the closing of the atrioventricular valves, and the dub is the closing of the semilunar valves. So now we've put together a bunch of things. We've put together the heart sounds, the volume, we're thinking of valves, what's happening, and we're thinking of systole and diastole. So lots is happening. Let's look at diastole. Here it's ejected. We're still talking about the right side. I've ejected that blood out towards the lung. I don't want it to slip back down again. My valve is shut. It can't go there. Now it's going to go move on to where it needs to go next. And during diastole, right, during filling, does it make sense that this ventricle is going to start filling again because it's relaxed? So squeeze, systole, out it goes. Relax, fill, and that's going to be diastole. So lots shown on one slide, and this I was showing you of what's happening in the ventricle. Now, what if I add even more onto this? So I don't know what words of wisdom to give you. Wiggers diagram is fantastic, but the problem is that you have to stare at it for a long time. And that's what I always tell my students. Stare at it, decipher what it's telling you, because it's a huge help. There's so much information on there that can help you understand how this heart functions, but it takes dissecting every little piece. So let's go to the more complicated one. So now we had, before I was just showing you that volume. And so on here, volume is here, left ventricular volume. And then the volume dropped and it was going to fill and all that is happening. And the valves are there. And I have ventricular systole, atrial asystole. So this, I showed you this little piece. Now what's happening up here? What's happening up here is what is going on with the pressure. So if you're filling this water balloon, that's volume. But what's happening to the pressure? The pressure is also increasing, right? Because you have this volume, but the pressure is going to increase even more when it starts to contract. And you contract it, and now pressure is increasing. So, to look at this section here, you'll want to look not so much in the aorta, but for example, in the ventricles for the red line of what's happening during ventricular systole when it starts to contract. If it contracts, pressure is going to go up. So this is showing pressure rising, 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 rising until that ejection is happening. You're losing fluid, and then that pressure starts to drop. On the bottom here is the little pictures of, oh, look, atria full, right? Oh, look, ventricle full. Okay, and mechanically what's going on, so that's helpful. And then at the very top, aligned with all these different mechanical things that are happening, is the ECG, the P, the QRS, and the T. Nothing, 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 the P, QRS, and the T. So that's my introduction to Wiggers. Look at it. Don't worry about what's the pressure in the aorta. Don't worry about what's the left atrial pressure. The important one to look at here in the middle is the red line. Up here, it's nice to correlate it, the ECG to the red line. And down here, it's nice to see what the volume is doing. And then, of course, the two valves, right? The first valve, atrioventricular. The second one that's taking off is the semilunar, whether it's the aortic or the pulmonary semilunar. If you're having trouble with this, go back to the videos, to the external videos that show following one drop of blood through the whole heart and what the pathway is and where the valves are. And that'll be a great review for you. And that'll be sort of sufficient for this kind of overall getting you all up to par here on all these concepts. So good luck with the Wiggers. He must have been a great guy, but he did confuse a bunch of us. Okay, take care, guys.